Today, myself, Devon Abraham, along with my group members Ryan Westby and Ellie Sutherland, will be presenting on the oligopoly. Just a brief overview about what we will be presenting today. We'll start off with firstly, what is an oligopoly and the market structure, the number of firms and why it's important, influence over price and product differentiation, advertising in an oligopoly, main concepts, entry into an oligopoly, local examples, and concluding the review. So let's jump.
Good day, everyone. Today we're going to examine a critical market structure known as oligopoly. An oligopoly is defined as a market structure in which a small number of firms dominate the market. Think of major industries like telecommunications, soft drinks, or aircraft manufacturing. They are often categorized by only a handful of major players. The key features here is that each firm is large enough that its decision whether on pricing, output, or advertising significantly affect the other firms. This leads to what economists call mutual interdependence. Because of this mutual interdependence, firms must constantly consider their rivals' reaction when they make a strategic decision. It's a game of strategy, not a game of individual action. Number of firms and why it's important. In an oligopoly, the number of firms is important because having only a few firms means each one is large enough to affect the others. When one firm changes price or output, the others see it and must respond. The small group gives each other firms power over price and makes it easier for them to match or follow each other's decisions. Because the market is dominated by just a few firms, it is also harder for new business to enter.
Have the influence over price and product differentiation. If firms compete aggressively, prices fall. If they behave cooperatively, prices rise. Because one firm's output affects the total market quantity, every decision has strategic consequences for rivals. So main takeaways of this is that few sellers lead to meaningful market power. Decisions are interdependent and strategic, and prices usually end up higher than competitive but lower than monopoly. For the product differentiation, Mankey notes that product differentiation allows firms to set prices slightly above cost because consumers may value brand differences. This strengthens each firm's market power and encourages non-price competition. Since firms try to highlight the uniqueness of their product rather than only cutting prices. Some main takeaways include differentiated products give firms extra pricing power. Consumers may prefer one brand, which leads to less pressure to match every price cut. And it leads to strategic behavior beyond just price. Such behaviors are features, quality, and service. Next, we have advertising in an oligopoly. Yes, oligopolies use advertising and it becomes a strategic tool to increase brand loyalty and shift demand toward one firm's products. It is not only informative, it's also a way to strengthen market position. Advertising is really essential in oligopolies. Nextly, firms sell similar but differentiated products. Because products are not identical, each firm wants consumers to see its brand as better or unique, hence the reason for advertising. Advertising also builds brand loyalty. Consumers start to prefer one firm's product, which reduces how easily they switch to their competitors. Lastly, we have the main concepts in an oligopoly. The first main concept is collusion, and this happens when rival firms secretly or openly agree to work together instead of competing. They coordinate things like prices or production levels so everyone can make higher profits. Think of it as companies teaming up to act more like a monopoly. It raises prices and reduces output compared to normal competition. And it's usually illegal because it harms consumers. The second concept is price fixing, which is a specific type of collusion. Here, firms agree to charge the same price for a product instead of letting competition decide. It removes price competition completely. Consumers lose because prices stay artificially high. And lastly, governments, including the latest government, strictly ban it because it manipulates the market completely. The last main concept is a cartel. Cartels is a formal group of firms that collude together. They meet, discuss, and set rules about prices, output, or market shares. A cartel is basically an organized collusion club, just a great deal bigger. The goal is to act like one big monopoly and share the profit. And lastly, cartels are unstable because each member is tempted to secretly cheat to earn more.
Entry process into an oligopoly. Revenue stream. When a new firm enters an oligopoly, its revenue stream is limited at first because a few dominant companies already control most of the market. The new firm may struggle to attract customers due to strong brand loyalty and similar prices across competitors. Profits and loss statement. New firms often face high startup costs and slow initial profits because established firms may lower prices or increase advertising. A new entrant may operate at a loss before it can gain enough market share to become profitable. Local examples: telecommunication Telecommunication. New firms struggle to gain revenue because Digi and Smart already dominate the market. Their strong customer loyalty and similar prices make it hard for newcomers to attract users. Fuel industry. Puma, Uno, and Rubis. Because these companies control most fuel distribution, a new entrant will have difficulty generating steady revenue. Prices are regulated and customer switching is low. Airline industry: Tropic Air, Maya Island Air. A new airline would face high losses at the start due to large operating costs and limited market demand. The two major airlines already control routes and customer trust. Banking sectors: Belize Bank, Heritage, Atlantic. Entering the market requires large capital and strict financial regulations, causing high initial losses. The three major banks already dominate loan and saving accounts.
To the last slide in our presentation, which is the concluding overview. So, just a brief summary of what oligopolies really are to recap what we said. Oligopolies are markets controlled by a few large firms whose decisions affect one another. Because each firm must think strategically, the market ends up somewhere between perfect competition and monopoly. Prices, output, and advertising all depend on how firms choose to compete or whatever they try to cooperate. So, some brief and main takeaways of the entire presentation is: few firms equal strategic behavior because each firm's choice influences rivals. Secondly, market outcomes fall between competition and monopoly. So it's kind of a mix between the two, but it's very distinct in its own nature, you could say. Lastly, cooperation is possible but unstable because firms may try to collude or form cartels, but cheating is very common in oligopolies. I want to leave you with this little quote that in oligopoly, the problem is not that firms have too little power, but that they have just enough to be tempting. Thank you all for listening to our presentation. We hope you found it very meaningful and engaging, and we hope you took away some main points from this. Thank you.